unknown system downtime issue. Additional cloud servers have been deployed to manage the load during the investigation. While current server
So
health
maybe
is
they just
stable,
lost the servers.
it said while
Okay.
current server health is stable, the underlying cause remains. They must host. They're probably hosting their servers in Hawaii or something, and then the wildfires are screwing them up. That would actually make sense because they have a large community of people in.
Have you
Australia.
seen videos?
Yeah,
I wasn't really paying attention. My wife sent me a couple videos of people like in the harbor, and it looks like a war zone. It's like dark. They're in the water in the harbor, and it's just fire everywhere.
Like, did you ever see Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where they're all like evacuating the island and just jumping onto whatever they can? That's what it looks like. Like they've been showing people like they're like, I don't know where my brother or my dad is. I hope they're okay.
So scary. So scary. So, all right, here we are. What's up, Rebels? McCabe here. Spears there. This is the 9th of August, 2023. And this is the weekly Restoration Rebel Roundtable. Welcome. We've got a hot topic today. Xactimate. I think it's going to be all Xactimate all day today. That's what we're going to talk about.
You got your half, and then I got something that I want to go over as well, because we're getting ready to enter everyone's favorite time of year, hurricane
season, baby. All right, here we go. Agreement number 1, I will protect the value of my services. Offering free services only serves to erode the value of similar services industry-wide. Agreement number 2, I will practice incredible transparency. I will explain my claims process in detail to my client. I will not hide pricing details or falsify reports. I will never communicate with an adjuster without also communicating with my client. Agreement number 3, I do not believe in competition. Restoration companies in my market are part of my community. I will be an active member of my community. It is our unbreakable unity that will create the change that we strive for. I had a great conversation with the famous Mr. Chuck DeWalt today. Speaking of community, great guy. All right. Agreement number 4, I'm willing to walk away from any project, client, or contract that is not compatible with my values and stated mission. No relationship is worth losing money, sleep, or my humanity. Can I get a hell yeah? Hell yeah. Wrote panelists. All right. Andrew Saul's in the house. So Xactimate. Wow, folks. Been on a tear the last 2 days. How long has service been out for most folks? Since yesterday?
48 hours.
48 hours. Xactimate's down. But I'm in. I don't know what I'm doing special over here in Oregon. It must be the clean water and air. So I'm in Xactimate. So Xactimate sent out this email to all the folks that I'm going to try to, let me see if I can find that post. I'm just going to bring the post up in here. This one? Nope. And
the roundtable invite?
No. The post on Xactimate. Okay, here I'm going to share the screen. Share screen. There we go. So Xactimate sends out this letter, an invite to a roundtable, a series of, there's 3 roundtables they're holding. It said sign up for one. They send it out to all the certified Xactimate muckety mucks, the certified pricing consultant folks out there, of which Joe and I are. Yes, we are. So among the agenda items, you can see right here, discussion on priceless items for drying per cubic foot. And then what other stuff is like, okay. As soon as I didn't read anything else, actually. I stopped reading at that point when I saw that, because I have been talking about a version of flat rate square foot pricing for mitigation or at least drying for some time, for years. I would say 5 or 6 years, because if you can come up with a number that works for you, and I don't know if it's $5 a foot or $105 a foot, but if you can come up with a number, you can just forget Xactimate. Just like, screw you, this is my number. I'll dry any structure. Doesn't matter how long it takes me. I'm going to guarantee you this price per square foot or this price per cubic foot, blah, blah, blah. So Xactimate sends us out. I'm like, bingo, let's do it. Let's talk about it. But I also, hold on, let me get Michael Bolin, trying to get you in here, bud. Oh, you don't want to be a panelist? All right. How about I just let you talk there? There we go. What's up, Michael? So I wanted to make sure that, yeah, Xactware, no offense, Xactware, this is just speaking my truth now, has had a history of seeking input and then not taking any fucking input. Case in point is the newly rolled out, what's that? The new module, Exact Pro, no, Exact Helper, Exact, stick it in your butt. What is it?
Oh, you mean the new exact rule
Expert,
thingy.
Exact Expert. The rule set, the new rule set, garbage. You know, you would think if you had actionable insights blazing the trail for you on this and seeing how they have just absolutely knocked it out of the park with the actionable profile, you would think Xactware, all they had to do, they had one job to do, copy that and put it in, you know, that's all they had to do. But no, they said, we're going to, you know, those rules are nice, but we like the carrier guidelines better. So we're going to force everyone to say no to all the carrier guidelines on every freaking estimate. Ugh, please.
Well,
people.
I think it's a ratio there. I mean, I think if you really boil the numbers down some, I think the carriers users outweigh the contractor users. And I think, you know, the carriers have a vested interest in not, you know, the plausible deniability. If I didn't know I was supposed to include it, and all, I can't be yelled at for, you know, shorting my customer a number.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's, I mean, but that's how why I think it went more carrier side personally.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and you're probably right, but it's garbage. But let's get back. I mean, yeah. Joe, you told me you were going to be wanted to get us off the rails. I've already gone down a rabbit hole here. So back to cubic foot, square foot pricing. And by the way, Mr. Andrew Saul, welcome, brother. How you been, man?
I've been well. I've been nerding out all day on business income claims.
There we go. That's what we
Getting
do.
lost in income statements that don't foot and they don't come to the right totals, and that's my day.
Oh, income statements. Yeah. You would think that would be the one thing a business would get right.
No.
No, not so much. Okay, so we got a lot of ground to cover tonight. I'm going to try to stay here. I wanted to know that, you know, going in, anticipating this conversation with Xactware on the 7th of September or September.
Yep.
Okay. I said I wanted to know, has Xactware reached out to everyone here? Who all has been a part of the conversation? Who has been brought to the table talking about this cubic foot pricing for drying concept? So I reached out to the man, the myth, the legend, Chuck DeWalt, and he confirmed that Xactware had talked to him. If you don't know, E3 is the evaporation potential model drying theory system. I don't know, but through Chuck's just got to figure it out. So I mean, he's got his cubic foot pricing down. You give him the stats, and he can plug it in into their system, and they'll know, okay, this is how much equipment you should use, and this is how long it should take. And these are the actual measurements you should be tracking along the way. So I was happy to hear that Xactware had talked to Chuck. Also know that Encircle has been talking to Chuck. So E3 evaporation, it is. I think it's the new way we should all be drying structures, because we've been using, frankly, really old technology for a long time, and in our understanding of how to dry structures has increased over the years, but our methodology has stayed the same at the S500 WRT ASD level, which was good for its time, but we know better now. So let's change our ways. So I'm of the opinion, if we can get enough input in here, and if the number works for the majority of contractors, whatever that number is, $1 a cubic foot, $20 a cubic foot, $100 a cubic foot. I have no idea. But if we can find that number, I think this is going to speed things up. It's going to eliminate the arguments of you used too much equipment. You didn't size your equipment properly. You were there for too many days. Because if you just go flat rate, if it takes you 10 days or it takes you 3 days, it's the same rate. You start to reward efficiency instead of deficiency and people that don't know what they're doing. Because you can't, if you've got a budget set with that flat rate of 5 days of drying for whatever, and you take 10, you're going to lose money on that job, or you're not going to make as much money because you were so inefficient. You sent people to that job for 5 extra days. You had that equipment out of service for 5 extra days. And, I think there's nothing but upside. Okay. I've said my piece. Joe.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question. Okay, this isn't I'm just an outsider listening to this. And it seems to me though that do they vary by location? Because if I'm trying to dry something out in Phoenix when it's 212 degrees, or I'm down in the Everglades where it's 93 degrees, but it's humid, do they make any accommodation for where the site is located?
I think that they would have
Yes.
to implement
Yes.
it based on it would be different
Well,
depending on the zip code.
No, I don't think it would. I think it depends solely on atmospherics. The characterization of the atmosphere is going to be different in all those regions,
Right.
but you're going to be measuring that with your tools. So the rate doesn't need to accommodate for that because the system or the algorithm is going to accommodate for that. Humidity, RH, ambient temperature, all that plays in.
I think they're opening up a can of worms that I think they're not right ready for. Because
How so?
Well, first off, only way to do a cubic footing, especially if you're going to use atmospherics as a precursor to figuring everything out of what you need, then they're going to have to implement some secondary module within Xactimate for you to input those readings to allow you to for the calculation properly calculate. And I don't see that being something they're going to do yet. That's a lot of extra programming and things like that. Additionally, yeah, on a standard residential cookie cutter, middle suburbia house, yeah, sure, it's probably going to be fine. But you do get those houses where they got king studs or they got a big header beam that's locked in moisture that no matter, even if you set 100% proper dehumidification and air movement, the bound moisture is not going to be released in the 5 days. So using the cubic footage is going to have to be something where, this here will account for your first, maybe 5 days, use WTR, DHM and air mover as need be for additional days, or the line item is going to have to be, this line item is to, for all incurred costs, dehues, equipment setup and takedown monitoring, blah, 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 for a class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4 loss. And it's, your calculation would either be V or F for the room.
It's going to have to be by class for sure.
But, it's either going to be V or F by room, but then it's going to be, this line item is a per day charge, just like how your dehues are per 24-hour charge. So you might have 5V for 5 days, 6V for 6 days, because, you can't just, first off, if they're going based on E3, that's going to be a whole other can on its own, because insurance carriers don't give a damn about knowledge. They don't give a damn about innovation and the science. The IS 500 that recommends using, for the most part, the short form calculations or the Mika. So that's all they're going to rely on. But, if you're going to charge it on there's going to have to be a clear cut way to either affect your numbers, or, you're going to have it where it's a per day 24-hour basis, because,
so drying by the cubic foot by per day. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Because think about it. Well, we showed up there and we controlled the environment on day one. We had to wait for pack out, but we still had to control the environment the whole time. Then we had to demo it for, the pack out took 4 days. Then we have 3 days of demo out there. So that's already, 7 days of drying that we need to be charged for, but it's not the full drying or fully drying amount because all we have is dehues and air scrubbers. Then we actually have to dry it out for 3, 4, 5 days. So,
well,
you're going to have a way to vary it.
I think the goal is to completely eliminate all that nonsense. I think the goal should be to find a rate that everyone can live with and say, hey, wait, that's a fine number. I'll figure out the rest. Once again, you're agreeing to a flat rate. You're not guaranteeing you're going to get it dry in a certain amount of time. And you're not obligating yourself to a certain amount of time or a certain set of activities. It's essentially, this is the all-inclusive price to do whatever it takes to properly mitigate that structure. I think there's a magic number out there that will work for the majority of contractors. And then it doesn't matter what class it is. It doesn't matter how many days of drying you have, because you're like, okay, I live with that number. No, you don't think so?
No, I mean, it's just no different than like, if you're doing a total gut of a room, even if it's a total gut of for water damage, but mainly on the fire, they have DMO, whole room, HRBR, HRB, BA for the bath, HRK for the kitchens, for full guts, which includes like the demo of the pipes and electric and all that shit there.
Sure.
And, most insurance carriers would like us to use those there. They think it's a better choice. I personally, as much as I hate saying this, I like using it too. It makes my job a whole lot easier. And if I go through an entire
if I'm truly dimming to the studs, I love that line item. But that's a specific use case. The majority of the mitigation you're seeing out there is you're doing a 1 foot, 2 foot flood cut. You're removing some base.
But we can't even get contractors.
You're not just wrecking and tearing.
But and the thing is if I use remove baseboard as a line item, that has extra support and events and extra yield calculations involved in it, because I'm taking the time to carefully cut the caulk line and remove that baseboard without damaging any other part of the house. I'm simply removing that baseboard. If you're just going in and you're gutting the whole room down, then you're not worried about that extra care. That's what the whole room demo line item is for. But
you're not taking the time, and you don't have to be as skilled.
But if you do take the HMR whole room line item or the DMO whole room line item, and then you also write the room out as full remove and replace line items, on average, it's about a 20 to 30% increase in your pricing on the overall job, because of that extra, those extra factors.
Did you just say using demo and individual line
items?
Well,
no, like if you write in the demo whole room line item, and then you write down the price on a piece of paper, and then you do the whole estimate as remove and replace, you'll make on average, I'd say 20 to 30% more per file.
Because there's a lot more labor involved.
What's the difference if I am completely gutting a room out
as far as Xactimate's calculation of labor yield and budget, there's more labor.
But if people are
lining it out than there is in the demo line item.
But most people are not willing to use that demo line item because it's a 20% price reduction, and they don't want to give up that 20% because they're so used to doing it by line items all the way.
I would argue they didn't earn that 20% because all they did do was go wipe it, gut it out to the studs.
Yeah.
I just got done with an appraisal on this very subject. Let's see if David Garcia wants to get in here.
But that's the thing is we can't get contractors to agree to use that line item. They'd rather try to get the 20% more. So,
but they haven't earned it. They haven't earned it. So there's this California contractor went to Florida for Ida, and he was just doing full guts. He was doing full guts with some stabilization and some drying of the structure. And his number was $85,000. And he did exactly that. He did line by line, baseboard, drywall, insulation. And what I did, and what the appraisal panel did, was use the DMO line item, because that's what it was. They weren't taking care to save any of this material. They went in and gutted a house to the studs. So that's the number we used. We ended up settling at $38,000.
You know, and that's
Half
the thing is
of what
there's
this contractor tried to charge.
there is no line item to remove plumbing. There is no line item to remove electrical. That's part of
No.
the whole room line item demo portion there. But we can't get contractors to agree to that there. So getting them to agree to use a drying by cubic foot thing, I don't see I see some people like you and me who might, you know, understand the numbers really well, be, you know, happy with it if they give us the right kind of magic number for it. But I see your day-to-day operational guy saying, no, like if I write it out the way I've been writing out for the last 10 years, I make more money. Why would I choose to do this itemized pricing?
Newsflash, Joe. We didn't agree to use Xactimate in the first place. Since when do we have to agree to shit? They're going to push it on us regardless. What I'd like to do is at least have a little bit of input on the front end before they start pushing their garbage. That's what it comes down to, for me at least.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to the idea of charging, you know, if it makes my life easier. But I'd also see that a lot of people are just going to look at it as another way for the adjusters to try to screw me out of 20% possibly or something, because I write it the way I've been writing it for 10 years. And now they're trying to say, oh, well, too bad. This is what you have to charge from now on.
I mean, when I hear people say stuff like you just said, I go back to the conversation that actually you were there for that conversation with the franchise guy in
all right,
where were we? Orlando. And he said, there's plenty of money in it. Yeah. So, I mean, you want to make 20% more, go get it. But he's living with 20% less, but his cash flow is flowing. His business is booming, and he's figured out an efficient way to get that work done. And I think that's just the future.
Well, I do think it would alleviate a lot of issues, because if you're, I mean, it all depends on, just like how full room demo line item can include, you know, for a room includes drywall, flooring, insulation, electrical, plumbing, windows, excludes
windows?
Windows are included in the whole room demo.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's just the only thing that for a basic room, it does not include exterior doors or cabinetry.
But you're gonna, if that's the case, you've got to build back for your board up, because you got to secure it before you walk away, right?
Well, it's inclusive of deconstruction or salvaging. So it's strictly speaking, if you just leave the windows in there and that's the only thing you didn't take out, it's still valid to use as a line item overall.
Okay.
But I mean, technically speaking, though, if you do use the whole room line item, or whole room demo line item, you should only be charging to replace windows when you come up to your window line item. You don't put it in for remove and replace. It's only your exterior doors. And like I said, for a bedroom, it's exterior doors, cabinets, because it's bedroom or room up to or above or up to 200 square feet or below 200 square feet. It's exterior doors, anything fireplace related, cabinetry, or anything related to asbestos testing or abatement work. So you got to take account those as well. But I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. It's just, I think it's going to, I mean, it's really going to depend. Is it just going to include the drying equipment? Is it going to include cleaning, is demo going to be involved, or do we do the whole room? You know, do we still line out our demo and it's just going to be cleaning and HEPA vacuuming? And
I think that's what we're about to try to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, if it's cleaning, if it was like this line item pricing is inclusive of any demolition required on a category 2 loss up to 2 foot, plus any cleaning or HEPA vacuuming or antimicrobial equipment setup, equipment takedown, monitoring, and equipment decontamination, and all in one lump price there, all day long, take my money because I don't have to argue it.
Yeah, I don't have to argue it.
But I also think that a lot of these adjusters are going to be so against it as well, because they're going to say, well, what all did you actually do all the work in here? And all of it's going to be like, kiss my ass. Like that's, No,
like, I think the whole point of the flat rate is to get away from those stupid conversations.
Yeah.
And stop arguing about shit. And this week's roundtable is brought to you by Hop Tea. And
unofficially brought by Hop Tea.
Unofficially. Oh, there's a focus. There we go.
I do like that they're also going to be giving us the new demo of the new direct supplier, because me, I have been a big fan of direct supplier since last year.
And I haven't used it hardly at all. I used it the other day. like yesterday, I'm going through this $1.8 million apartment fire that I briefly showed you. And it's gonna be useful
if they get it right.
well, if they get it right. Right. There was a lot of things I couldn't find. There's a lot of things that we had estimated. I mean, and simple things like electrical boxes, if for some reason I couldn't find it. But
I don't like it because like right now, because like if I have 8 bedrooms and and a living room and a kitchen, blah blah, and every room has a LITAV line item in it on the direct supplier, it bunches them up as one line item. Here's how much you have for light, and you can't. And it's really hard to say, well, this room's
I want a chandelier in there, but we want just a boob light in here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of going to be funky there, but I mean, I'll be interested in that there as well. I know they're going to do they're going to expose.
I think it's good for budgeting. I think it's just good for strict budgeting, not actually, no one's going to use it as an actual shopping list. No one's going to hit order from Home Depot using it. No way.
I think that's what I think that you hope that eventually will happen.
That's their hope and dream, but fuck.
And then they're going to redo the price line editor. They're redoing the price line editor to make it easier to do custom price scheme. So that would be interesting.
Robert Larson said, what about, yeah, go ahead. Who's this?
I'm curious. It's Andy. Are you, is there going to be business income on that apartment fire, or is it too small to matter?
There is. Didn't I bring you? I think I brought you in on that one, or at least made an introduction.
No, the one that you brought me in on was the one I did with Ski Town in Colorado.
Okay. Have you had a conversation with Millard and Bragg out of Portland? All right. Ping me. Yeah. They're messing around with it, but State Farm's giving them business. So yeah, let's make that connection. Good call.
Yeah. I love that State Farm.
God, State Farm. So Robert Larson says, what about in the terms of stabilization when waiting for old hazmat samples to come back or waiting for insurance carrier to approve the sampling? Would you just lose the money having equipment there?
Well,
I would say no. I think
stabilization
is going to be different.
I would never wait for an approval for sampling. First off,
bingo.
Like sampling
bingo,
is
bongo.
It has to be done no matter what. Like that's not an option there. Now, once the sampling comes back,
we do not ask for authority. We have the authority.
Now, if you're going to wait, once you get the samples back to validate that they have coverage or that coverage will be extended for abatement, that's a different topic altogether. But you don't need to wait for approval to take the sampling. So yeah, that's my point.
I think to answer his question though, I think you have the square footage or cubic footage flat rate pricing would apply only during that certain period of we have started the drying process.
Yeah, because when you're stabilizing, you're not drying, so you would have
technically not.
But then again, that's why I think this whole cubic foot per day would be.
But here's the deal with stabilization: you're actually having a positive effect on the drying environment of that house while you're stabilizing. So you should get credit for that. You should rent the equipment for that. You should do all the normal stuff. But then once the drying starts, you've got a 3-day head start. So the calculation, your atmospherics and your material readings are going to be very different on day 4 when you actually start your drying than they were on day 1 when you started your stabilization.
Okay, so devil's advocate, Andy. Here you go.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. McCabe, so you use the drying per cubic foot line item, and it's inclusive of 5 days of drying. But when you sent over your documentation to your homeowner who forwarded it to me, as your due diligence to your homeowner to provide proper documentation, it shows that you only monitored for 3 days. So you didn't fulfill the agreement of this 4 to 5 day dry out, line item here. So I need you to reduce that by point, or, make it instead of a full count, make it only 60% full count, because
I'm sure that argument is going to be made early and often, but fuck that. I agreed to a flat rate price, and I didn't agree I would dry this thing in 5 days. I didn't agree to what I would do inclusive in that price. I just told you I would mitigate this loss. Further damage would not happen. You would have a dry structure at the end of my efforts. That's all I guaranteed, and that's what I delivered. So yeah, I'll hammer against that all day long.
But those would be the arguments we get. Like I said, it needs to be specifically for the actual drying time only, not indicative of the demo time, stabilization time, pack out time, and all that. But like I said,
Yeah,
I
this
think
is not an easy nut to crack. This is not going to be easy to get right, and it's going to be very easy to fuck this up. I'm going to say that right now.
and it is. I mean, like I said, that's why I think it needs to be. You got to have it class 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then like I said, I personally think it should be. I'm going to be a hard component of saying it should be per 24-hour period. And you just do
That's a good idea, actually.
5V,
but
4V
doesn't
or 6V.
Doesn't that eliminate the whole purpose of having a flat rate if you're still going to do it by the day?
Well, it's a flat rate by cubic foot per day.
By day.
Per day. And I mean, because if it's a 3-day dry out, my flat rate is going to be this here. But if it does take 5 days, my flat rate, even though it's per cubic foot, that number needs to be adjusted for a 5 days worth of it.
I'd have to see the spreadsheet. I'd have to play with the numbers on that.
Like, maybe if it's a 4-day dry out, that's a full count, it's kind of like full count at 4 to 5 days. And then each additional day that you add to it would be, 10% or 20% of the initial value. And it's kind of a diminishing returns on your, as you extend out further, kind of a mentality.
Okay.
But I mean, there's got to be some way, because there's many jobs where I'm in Arizona or California, and I'm up in Palmdale. The humidity outside is only 6%. 6% humidity, and that place is going to dry in 48
well. I tell you what it's going to do. It's going to slaughter those folks in Phoenix. Those poor guys aren't going to know what hit them. E3's going to come in and say, "Open a goddamn window."
Yeah.
Well, it's going to destroy those guys.
But if you're in the middle of of Georgia in the summer and the humidity is 120%,
yeah,
you're
I don't know how people live there. I really don't. I don't get it.
They grow
hey,
bills.
Mr. Lou, what say you?
Hey, from Palmdale myself, but let me chime in on that. What about security issues? As far as that's my rebuttal to opening that window. 35 years ago, when I was bringing dry airs 60 refrigerant dehumidifiers onto the job site, I was the one that was bucking the trend, if you will. And they said, well, Lou, we're in the desert. Let's just open windows and doors. Well, sure. You're not going to open windows in Palmdale, Lancaster, California in 2023. That's for sure.
Well, I will tell you from my experience when I did work, and I worked out of Sylmar, and we did Palmdale and Lancaster a whole lot. If I would go up there and there at the very beginning of the job and open the windows and doors up while I was doing my demolition process, the amount of humidity that's pulled out, you would close them before you leave.
Huge.
I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you would burp the house effectively and cut your, you would get 3 day, maybe you might get a 4 day, but on average it was 3 days of drying.
Sure.
In Indiana, though, I can only burp houses in Indiana in the middle of wintertime because it's so cold outside that the humidity is super low and all. So we burp houses in the wintertime while we're working and we freeze our asses off. But when you're sweating your ass off, it feels good.
Lou, have you ever done the math or an experiment on air drying, on burping? I've got to imagine, I'm thinking about just the physics of it, right? The physics of it it's such a downhill pull for that moist air inside to want to be pulled to that really dry, really hot air through really hot building materials, right? The siding and the roofing and the sheathing, that stuff gets hot, right?
And there's no insulation.
Yeah.
Usually.
So Lou, what do you think, Lou?
Yeah, I agree. An area like ours, if they really want to push the issue, I think there's a lot of mechanical dehumidification that's going to come off of, invoices.
$1 million
But,
idea, Andy. Sorry, Lou.
Exactly.
$1 million idea for me and Lou and all us all. Let's get together and develop some kind of screen mechanism that we can install in Windows to allow for open air drying in the desert areas, but it will still allow security for the homeowners.
A security screen.
And then we can charge for that. But
Right.
I mean, at nighttime, hell, the desert gets cold enough. Sometimes it can damn near frost or snow.
It's right. Wait. Oh, I can't even get it there. Hold on a second.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not unusual for us to have a relative humidity of, 15%, 17%. I'm looking
just-
right now and it's
just
saying
take
outside
that.
it's 47 right now. So that's, that kind of defeats the purpose. But 47, we're in monsoon season,
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. But
I mean,
you're- Joe, what you're talking about is a really, really high security version of that fan.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing is like, I mean, there's just so many different factors based on where it's at, unless the square foot or cubic footage, whichever one you want to use, calculation varies based on the price list zip code area being used in the month it's worked in. I think that it's going to be a very hard thing for them to overall get a number that everyone will be happy with.
Yeah. Okay.
But
That's
I
fair.
do believe that it's possible. I mean, but like I said, I think because if I can write an estimate and just every room has 2 line items, demo room and then dry per cubic
Drive by
foot,
square foot, drive by
done
cubic
all
foot.
day long. But
All day
like I said,
long.
I see the adjusters losing their mind. But what all does that number include exactly? Because right now, if you try to give them a QuickBooks invoice or a homemade invoice through like Job Nibs or something, and it just says demolition, $2,500, dry out, $3,500, debris removal, they're like, I need to itemize. I need to know exactly where all this number goes, because they rely, as bad as it sounds, though a lot of these adjusters are relying on our mitigation estimates to be broken out so they can reverse engineer it and put the reconstruction back together again.
Mhm.
And if they don't have that information, it's going to make their lives harder, and then they're going to bitch. And just like everything else, the carrier will decide that that's not a good idea to use that.
Then
money.
the ESX, that's what they want, the ESX to make their job easier.
Exactly right.
So, I mean,
Yes,
like I said, it is a slippery slope there, but I mean, I'm all for discussing it and find out what all wants involved. But like I said, without some kind of a modular even where I can input my initial, I mean, if they do it, then they have to implement a inside Xactimate monitoring system.
I don't think
can
so.
input.
I don't agree. I don't think so. I don't think Xactimate wants any part of that nonsense. They just want to come to a rate that everyone can live with, or some people can live with, and the rest just bitch about, but not going to revolt about. And leave the documentation and the actual measurements and the E3 stuff. Leave it to the in-circles of the world. Leave it to the dashes of the world. I don't think Xactware is getting into the moisture monitoring business with this play. I don't see that at all.
I think they should, I mean, I think it'd be smart of them too, but I don't see them doing it either. But I mean, like I said, there's just so many factors, I mean, and just like everything else, like a flat rate drying fee is going to be dependent on airflow. Well, this homeowner has a shit, they're hoarder. I mean, I can't get adequate airflow. Like it's going to have, that pricing changes it as compared to somebody, it's an empty, for sale home that I have perfect airflow around on. So, I mean, there's just a lot of factors in it. So.
Well,
That's
what
my
else you
take.
got on Xactimate? I'm going to start going down.
Well, I was going to go over, I wanted to discuss a little bit
grapevine here.
about everyone's favorite entity in the whole wide world that is way more fun to deal with than any insurance carrier ever. And that is our favorite government organization, FEMA, especially concerning the hurricane work that's getting ready to come up. So
okay.
I'm going to, can I still screen save or
Okay.
share?
Oh, here you go. Here you go.
Okay,
There you
so
go.
I'll post this. I post this every year. I'll post it in the chat log as well. It's a document you can find online. But this is the document that dictates for anybody that's going to be doing work that is billed through FEMA, even though it's March 2013, it's still the right document. This is what you have to follow for billing FEMA. And there's a there's major things that need to be aware of for everybody if you're going to be doing any FEMA work, regardless if it's hurricane or not. If FEMA is going to be involved, you have to follow this and all. So number one, when drying services are performed in the submission of an itemized invoice is not supported with a properly dry log, you get 3 days. You get 3 days of dehumidification.
Period. End of story. Yep.
And if you had 100 air movers on day one, you get 100 air movers. On day two, you get 50, and on day three, you get 50. Period. And if you could literally be drying for 12 days, and if you miss one single day, you go back to this 3-day dry out. So now if you do have a proper supported, when drying services are performed in a properly completed dry out submitted with an itemized invoice, the insurer and the carrier representative should take into consideration the number of drying equipment units validated by the drying log.
Drying log. Mhm.
So if you want to get around having a 3-day dry out, you have to have every 24-hour drying logs. And
You gotta document it, for
You
sure.
cannot skip a single day.
What's the name of, Joe, what's the name of that document?
And if you type in FEMA W13025, like I said, I'll post it. I'll share it. And let me see if I don't know if I can share a document. I'll just share it into the group, the main thread.
It's
here.
claims. It's titled Claims Guidance, Structural Drying, and Other Related Items from
Alright,
FEMA.
copy. FEMA claims guidance. There we go. And then, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that there. I'll upload it right now just so it's in here. File.
Okay.
Just have a quick question. This hasn't been updated in 10 years.
No. As messy as it sounds, I've had numerous people be like, "Oh, that's outdated." No, it's
Somebody's
not
paying
outdated.
attention. Good
Yeah.
catch.
Mhm.
But
I saw this last year in storms out in California, or not last year, sorry, earlier in the year, storms here in California. I ran into a lot of trouble just writing estimates for it because I hadn't done FEMA estimates in some time, and I ran across that, and I was assuming by now it'd be updated, but I guess they're just reusing it every year.
yep, pretty much.
Hey,
So-
Because it ain't broke.
FEMA got involved with the generational storms that we had at wintertime, New Year's.
Yeah. So a lot of the coverages that folks had referred to this FEMA coverage. There's some stipulations in their policy, so
Oh,
a portion of it was covered by FEMA. I had
Yeah, it starts
20 losses.
with Xactimate still though, but then you start backing stuff out.
Well, the reason why I want to bring this
correct.
to everyone's attention is because up until last year, everybody was always submitting for the most part, especially because a lot of people are getting like the large loss stuff, the complexes and the apartment complex stuff. Time and material was being allowed all around. Last year, every fucking job that I did, I had to take the company's time and material estimate and translate it into Xactimate.
Wait, so time and material isn't itemized enough for FEMA?
Not anymore. It's not.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
So this is why I wanted to go over this. So not only do you have to be aware about having the moisture readings every day to support more than 3 days of drying. The other part of this is going to be pages 4 and 5, numbers 1 through 8 that are very important. Number 1, water extraction. It is important that the estimated unit price for water extraction reflect what is actually required, such as when extracting water with a pump, hose, or pumping out. This is a different task with a different cost compared to performing water extraction manually using a wet vacuum or specialized extraction equipment when salvaging structural building materials. When flood water is extracted to aid the removal of carpet and padding, it is included in the removal price. When it is used during the course of cleanup, or as in the removal of spent cleaning water, it's included in the cleaning price. So if you go into Xactimate and you type in FCC AV,
Pump out only.
if you have FCC AV and it's $250, and you type in WTR EXTS extract category 3 water and it's $1.50, you take that $1.50 and you add it to the extract carpet line item pricing, and
Has
you delete
anyone-
the actual line item.
Has anyone put together a FEMA price list for Xactimate? For
I
those
was working
guidelines?
on one, but I gave up.
They fluctuate. I'll tell you right now, last year I had line items. I had muck out. I had to make, I'm dead 100% serious. I got told by the carrier, because some of our stuff we were trying to do the time material, to just increase the price list. We had muck out at $35 a square foot. And the judge was like,
Holy
as long, he's like,
shit.
that's fine. He's like, that's fine. He's like, as long as your numbers are working out, it's just, I
You were
have to have it a
killing
certain-
it.
we were charging $145 a day for air movers, or no, for dehumidifiers, and like $40 to $50 a day for air movers. Because
Andrew,
we
good to
have
see you,
to,
man.
we have to factor this stuff in. So if you're doing cleaning, clean floor afterwards or whatever, and you gotta, you're gonna do a hot water extraction and then you're gonna suck the water up. Those 3 line items you combine into the CLN AV or
Okay, so
CLN F minus line item.
wait a minute. So wait a minute. Let me back up. I've never done a whole ton of FEMA work. So let me be
All
the
right, so
dummy here. Let me ask the
here,
question. No, I need to ask a question though.
Okay.
FEMA doesn't dictate pricing.
That's not a question of pricing. It's about
It's a question of
how you bill
what
it.
items, what you're allowed to bill for and what you're not.
Correct.
Right. Certain
So
items are allowed.
certain items are allowed, certain items are not. In this circumstance, extraction to aid in the removal of padding, not allowed. But what I just heard you say is you still need to accommodate for that $150 a foot for extraction.
When flood water
But
is
you're telling me to
extracted-
put it into the FCC AV minus line item?
our
The
WTR
WTR
FCC. Yeah, when flood water is extracted to aid the removal of carpet and padding, it is included in the removal price.
What would it take to put together a price list like that?
Well,
Yeah,
this is just step 1, Andy. It gets worse. So that's
God.
step 1.
I'm
Step
thinking if
2,
enough people want this thing, I'll make it. But I gotta know
Step
how
2.
hard it's going to be.
If your building has power and you need additional generators to run your equipment, generators are payable by FEMA. But if the building does not have power, generators are not covered under FEMA billing. So
What? Wait,
if
say that again.
if a building has no power and you have to get generators to run your equipment, FEMA will not pay for it. But if you need additional power above and beyond what the building already has, they will pay for those generators.
Now, there's an asterisk to that, Joe.
What the F?
A lot of line items that aren't allowed via this document, what you can do, and what I did was in aggregate, add those to your equipment costs.
Yep.
So I was billing DQs at $500 a day.
Yep.
And I had 5 DQs of house. So it was, and those small details and billing details do change carrier to carrier. So putting a price list is a good base, but every carrier handles it differently. It's a bit of a clusterfuck.
So at what point do you find out what those carrier guidelines are?
When they come back to you and tell you that your estimate's wrong.
That's a great, yeah. It's honestly adjuster too.
There's no way to anticipate that.
None. But
No,
here's the
not
thing
even.
this is compounding each of these issues that I'm going to talk about. It's compounding. So step 1 is type out your extraction for carpet and pad, add it to the pricing of the carpet and pad or the cleaning or whatever you're doing. That's step 1. Step 2, when generators, air scrubbers, negative air movers, air filtering equipment, PPE, and other equipment and associated labor are needed for the removal of damaged building materials, cleaning, or applying mildewcide, they are considered included in the price. So then you have to write all this shit out in your estimate, add it all up, and then divide it out between.
So what you're talking about is what real contractors would call general conditions. You're building your general conditions into your line items to cover all that stuff, and it's going to work out to a percentage.
Yeah, I mean, I'll write up my estimate in a separate folder, all of this shit here, and then I'll figure out what the number is, and then I'll divide it by and then I'll delete it, and then divide it out by how many line items I have, and that's how much I add to each of the line items.
But am I reading between the lines correctly? FEMA work could be more profitable than regular insurance work?
100%.
Yes.
100% if you bill it correctly. But people
mine were
don't bill
at least 30% higher than the Xactimate pricing. Like the
amazing.
adjuster literally said, charge more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't care about pricing at all.
He told me to.
When number 3, this one doesn't affect a lot, but when the claim includes drying a salvageable item, the charge to apply a sealer or a preservative on the same item is not allowed unless there's document that it was already there before the loss. So you can't go in if you have a bunch of moldy studs, you can't spray it down with an antimicrobial paint or nothing. They won't pay for that. Period. Temporary power. When a building's electrical system is not operable, the charge for a generator power drying equipment is not allowed. Period.
What we're talking about here is 100% mitigation, right? None of
Mhm.
this is have to do with the repairs at all, right?
Yep.
So fine. I'm not going to put a sealer on anything because that's going to be part of my repairs.
Yep.
I'm just going to make sure it's dried properly. Okay.
Generators used to power large desiccant dehumidifiers may be considered when the capacity is validated and properly completed dry log is provided. If you don't have proper dry logs and you have a big old desiccant, you don't get paid for it. End of story. It doesn't say with, or it says end a properly. End a, you have to have it. When the building power supply is considered insufficient and a generator and auxiliary distribution equipment is needed, a charge may be allowed under specific situations and such contact blah, 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 and figured out there. So you can get a power if you need additional power. You just can't get it for powering a dead building.
So that's a weird item to call out. Like
Drying prior to building's HVC restoration. You'll love
What?
this one, Andy.
what?
Mechanical drying should not be performed prior to tear out, clean up, sanitizing treatment, and in the full restoration of the HVAC system. However, when mechanical drying is performed prior to the full restoration of the HEC, all charges for temporary climate control or any subsequent charges for cleaning, sanitizing, or drying are not covered and cannot be paid.
Mechanical drying. So you can do all the muck out. You can
If you don't get the
okay.
furnace guys in there and
You
get the
do
homeowner's
everything
furnace back up
but
and running,
drying until you get the furnace up and running. And so what happens in a hurricane cat situation where you're not going to get a furnace up and running for 4 weeks? You just leave, you muck it out, you don't dry it, and you leave it sit. Is that what this is telling us to do?
when mechanical drying is performed before the full restoration of the HVAC, all charges for temporary climate control or any subsequent charges for cleaning, sanitizing, or drying are not covered. So they'll pay for the demo, but if you don't get the furnace back up and running 100%, they will not pay to clean the property,
Those
sanitize
houses
it,
are
or
still
dry
going to
it.
mold out. In a hurricane situation, those houses are going to mold out.
That's the government for you.
That's what's going to happen. And it's going to turn into a whole bunch of follow-up mold. What does FEMA say about mold work?
The cost to
Or
clean, they don't say
they don't
anything about
care.
mold. The cost to clean, sanitize, and maintain equipment after usage is included in the unit price. So then your equipment decon and all that part there, you factored into the rental price of your equipment.
Man, I'm a little bit ashamed of myself. I've never read this document.
Overhead and profit. A contractor's allowance for overhead and profit is applicable only when a properly completed dry log is
It's all
submitted.
about the drying log, baby.
The contractor either hired or performed the services,
Okay,
That gets around
okay.
the bullshit of, oh, it's already part of Xactimate's, line item. And it is reasonable that the contractor's responsibility and oversight were necessary with the services. But if you are missing the drying log, overhead and profit is not all, they don't have to pay you overhead and profit on it.
But they're also not saying overhead and profit is 10 and 10.
No, they just said overhead and profit.
Freaking A, man.
Non-covered items. The SFIP does not cover the cost to dry building materials that have been claimed in a removal or replacement allowance, not directly damaged by the flood. That is an exterior item in direct contact with the elements. Excluded items such as those in a basement or below the lowest level elevated floor of a post-firm elevated building, or when the cost of drying an item is more than the value of the item. So
Mhm.
if you have siding that gets all damaged and all during the water job, FEMA doesn't pay for it.
Not to dry it. Doesn't pay to dry it.
Yeah. Anything in a basement
But
or below
that-
grade, or
That's
below,
probably going to get picked up by the repair side and paid for under the repairs instead of the mitigation.
Yep.
That's fine.
anything that's in a basement or
Man,
below the lowest elevated floor.
They're begging us to be really inefficient here.
I mean, literally, like
But maybe this is intentional, right? Maybe they want to make it as profitable as possible so they can get contractors to respond in a meaningful way during a cat. Maybe, what do you think?
well, the problem is right now is I would, and you guys can all chime in here. I would easily guesstimate 80% of people do not bill it correctly,
Right.
and they're coming in way under, or you get an adjuster who's going to get the estimate before they send it to FEMA, and they bitched you about your pricing, and they've never read this here and understand that I have to add the extraction price. I can't mention it. I can't say this line item is for extraction and removal of carpet. It's just no F9 notes, just remove category 3 carpet, and it's $4.50 a square foot. Remove category 3 pad, and it's, $3.60. That's all that it needs to read. You don't need to put any notes in and say what all includes, because if you say it does include extraction, then they'll wipe it off your estimate and say, we don't pay for that. I mean, you cannot.
I mean, you should be attaching this. Someone needs to write an explainer to this. And then that gets attached to every invoice you send on the FEMA jobs.
That's what I do every time.
Yeah, you have to.
Now, I will say that if it's a 12-page long document, so like if you go down through here, you'll see more about drying and categories.
Is any of that substantive? Is that any of that worth mentioning?
Guidance on for coverage under the scope of dry a flood damaged building is typically limited to drying bound water which is held inside salvageable structural materials. So they don't pay for stabilization. If you're leaving equipment so it doesn't mold, but you're planning on turning out anyways, you don't get paid for that because they're only paying you to dry what's being salvaged.
No stabilization. Just get at, and that's what it's come down to is you get a whole bunch of folks. First guys in are the tarping guys. Second guys in are the demo guys, just mucking and piling everything in the front yard by the street.
I will say though, I like
the third set of guys are coming in to actually dry the structures.
I do like this here. But after the removal of unsalvaged building items, cleaning and treatment against mold and mildew, and the removal of spent cleaning water, any residual water left on the surface or absorbed into the pores will quickly evaporate.
Oh, well, that's nice. Thanks, FEMA, for that.
But at least it says that it does specifically say treatment against mold and mildew. But yeah, I mean, this is a nice packet of information to have if you don't know how to bill FEMA.
And that sounds like really profitable work.
Yep. And then
but what you said, you said it, Joe. 80% of the guys can't follow directions, and their bills are getting cut because they're just not following directions.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those line items are getting chopped out. My suggestion after this past year, and in order to write proper FEMA estimates, is to just take your items that don't anything other than a labor line item or equipment line item. Just tally those numbers and add them to the equipment and send it out. You'll get zero pushback. You'll be paid in a week and a half. Boom. Good.
Mm-hmm. Boom, boom, boom.
But like this goes.
I like it.
I just posted it to the group so everyone can read it and get it.
Everyone go through that. Let's see who's chatting here. Oh yeah. Andrew had to go a few minutes ago. So that's awesome. Let's go deeper into that next week. What say you? I think we need to cover that a little bit more. I'm intrigued. Yeah, because if we could, so historically, my shop, Claims Delegates, has not written FEMA work, and that's due to essentially my fundamental misunderstanding or not understanding the process at all. But it sounds like, that's a good revenue stream for an estimating firm if we can learn how to do that.
You can definitely make good money doing it, but you just have to, like I said, you have to know
These
the
pricing.
game.
People are gonna have kittens over this pricing. It's.
Andy, hang on. Let me open it up real quick here. So the last job I just got done writing.
Lose their minds.
First off, so to get the numbers right, I factored it up for the whole price list up 40%, and I still couldn't get to our time
right
and
out of the
material.
gate.
I couldn't even get to our time material number. So I had to
Really?
keep going through and adding it. So like right now on this estimate here, let's see here. I've got, let's see here. A garbage is, and this ain't the right one. Damn it. This is the bad one. That's the first version of it.
David, I'd be real curious about those carrier specific guidelines. Because essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, FEMA steps in to pay for it all and has an overlay of guidelines, these guidelines and rules, but it's still the same carriers, State Farm, farmers, that are just handling the claim, but it's just separate coverage. Yeah.
Yeah, they push those costs off to FEMA. That's all they do. It's a handoff.
Okay.
Yeah, they just look at it, make sure that.
So
if
they
there's
still
anything
handle
people-
they handle the file, they handle the claim, but it's paid by that portion of it's paid by FEMA. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
effectively, they just say, hey, people won't pay for this, take it off the estimate.
Yep.
And then as soon as you
Yeah.
get it within the FEMA approved guidelines, then they say, okay,
Yeah,
we'll
but-
send it off.
But you just got done telling me that it's carrier to carrier. But if all the carriers are using FEMA's guidelines, why are they not the same?
Because they're not reading the
Because
paperwork.
They're not
Yeah.
reading the paperwork. They're not educated.
So it's an education problem.
Yeah, that's all it is. The carriers have zero guidelines. It's from adjuster to adjuster. I had the chance, no, the blessing of that first adjuster for one of my FEMA estimates walk me through the process. So the rest were pretty easy.
Okay.
But the best thing to do again is just to obviously document your job properly through dry logs and notes. You can put it in the opening statement, everything you did, all the itemized stuff, and then just everything just in time material, bump
And
up
then-
your cost to fit whatever you did, and then that's basically it. It's pushed on to FEMA.
And then have a very frank and open conversation with the first adjuster you talk to.
Yeah.
And
I
say,
mean,
right
like-
off the bat.
this is not the last time you and I are going to have this conversation. Let's get it over with right out of the gates. What are your expectations? What's it going to take for me? I want to work with you. I think that's good. That's going to be more important than any other step.
Yeah, I mean, because like tear out drywall default pricing right now is like $1.76 roughly a square foot. And I can tell you right now that I was more than double that line item price. I won't tell anybody the maximum number, but I was more than double that price for the
Right.
tear out the drywall.
You're
I mean-
probably in the $5 range, but not that we tell anyone what our pricing is or what they should charge ever.
But the reason why, like I said, the reason why that number is so high is because I have PPE worked into it. I have, PPE cleaning, tool decontamination, all those different things factored into the line. Air scrubbers, a little bit of my air scrubber charges are factored into that pricing because that's how FEMA wants it done.
Yeah, the
It's
whole
amazing.
process, I felt like I was doing something wrong. Like,
Oh yeah, like my
You
I
felt
boss
a
was
little
like,
guilty
this is
about it?
backwards. Yeah,
my boss
but
told me
I
numerous
was
times.
literally asked to charge more. So that's
My boss's
all I
little
needed.
response, my boss's little response to me was, Joe, I know your OCD integrity brain is having a mental breakdown right now.
Just
And you're
roll
like, there's
with
no
it.
way they're gonna pay with it. He goes, just do what they say
Roll.
and take care of it.
Just roll. So
yeah, it felt dirty, but you know what? It's fine.
hey, it's government money. It can't be clean. So
Right.
all right, we're 4 minutes past. I think we're going to call it. We got some things going on for next week. I think we have some things to talk about, and we got things in the group that are hot and heavy. So good to see everyone here. Michael, you didn't get to chime in. You didn't say anything. Michael and Trudy didn't say anything. You guys want to say anything before we go? Last chance. All right. Oh, yep.
No, I did find it interesting, the different burping techniques, because I'm actually in Georgia.
Oh,
Even in the winter, our humidity is too high.
yeah.
So it's
All day
not
long.
something we commonly do here at all. It would be something that would be nice and speed things up, but it's not something that's realistic for us.
No, no
All
way.
you gotta remember is if the humidity is lower outside than inside, burping is able. So like in the fall and winter times when the humidity is not stupid high, you might still be able to do it at times, but you just, if you're not used to doing it, it's very foreign of a thing to do for a lot of technicians.
Yeah, but in Phoenix, it's not unreasonable to, outside versus inside air to have a 200-point grain depression. I mean, it's just dumb. It's
Then
It's
air
a
mirror in the
cliff.
window and blow it out, and it'll just
That's it. I mean,
Yeah, I think I was probably in the industry for 4 years before I even heard the term burping. And it was at an ASD class. So
I love it. It works. It works. So, all right. Hey, Michael, good to see you. Good to have you here. Lou, as always, great to see you. Joe, thanks, man. Thanks for that FEMA thing.
Yep. Read it over.
Same
We'll
bat-
talk about it next week.
Same bat time, same bat channel next week, Wednesdays, Wednesdays, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, claimsdelegates.com/RRRT to get signed up. If you are signed up, you should be getting emails now, reminders from Zoom about the weekly thing. So, all right, everyone, be good out there. We'll see you.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
guys.
Take care, guys.